Believe it or not, there are just over 100 days until the 2020 presidential election, and presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden is urging supporters to ignore the polls and keep working after the latest CBS News Battleground Tracker found him close to or leading President Trump in 3 crucial states. The former vice president is ahead by 6 percentage points in Florida. The two are tied in Arizona, and the president leads in Texas by just a single percentage point. All 3 of those states, which Mr. Trump won in 2016, are seeing a spike in coronavirus cases. Not a coincidence, according to our polls. Ed O'Keefe is covering campaign 2020 for us. Ed, good morning. We should remind people that what matters in American presidential elections is winning states, not a national popular vote, as we saw in 2016. That's why we have the Battleground Tracker. What's it telling us about how the pandemic is influencing politics?
Well, right now, Tony, you could argue the pandemic is everything in presidential politics. It's part of the reason why we even feel compelled to take a look at the possibility that Joe Biden could win 1, 2, or 3 of these Sun Belt states. And what our poll found is that the more concerned a voter is in these 3 states about coronavirus, about getting it, about the response to it, the more likely they are to support Joe Biden. That's partly because the polling has found that Democrats and independents are more concerned about this pandemic overall and its potential on yourself or your family or your friends than Republicans. But what it also suggests now is that sort of the response to it, the competent government response to it, is becoming a concern, and people are willing to take that out on President Trump and Republicans.
Yeah, so we are 100 days from the vote, thereabouts. That feels like both a long time and not a long time. How locked in are voters?
For the most part, this poll finds a majority of them are, for the most part, settled on either voting for President Trump or for Joe Biden. One of the interesting things this poll found is that if you compare this year to 4 years ago, Biden is doing better among 3 key groups that he needs to win over, and that in some cases could potentially still swing back either way. Women, seniors, and Latinos. Women especially, it was found in Arizona. Seniors are what's helping him in Florida, and stronger than some other polls have found recently than anticipated support among Latinos is helping him in Texas. And it would take a combination of those 3 groups, seniors, women, and Latinos especially, to win a state like Texas, something that's on like the dream list for Democrats, and at the beginning of this year wasn't necessarily seen as something that they could be competitive in trying to win.
You know, it's very remarkable. Hillary Clinton won women in Florida by just 4 percentage points in 2016, and Biden is up double digits overall among women in the state of Florida. Very notable indeed. You know, who you vote for is sometimes driven by how much you like that person and sometimes driven by how much you dislike the other person. Is that what's going on here?
It is, and this is where the president actually has a bit of an advantage in terms of the so-called enthusiasm gap. You look at his supporters. Why are you voting for the president? Most of them say it's because they like the president. They like him. They like the work he's been doing. But you go over to Joe Biden and you say, why are you voting for him? Most of the people, a plurality of them, are saying it's because he's not President Trump. It's not that they like Joe Biden, it's that he's anybody but the president. That's part of why you've seen Biden last week, what we'll continue to see in the coming weeks, start to roll out some specific ideas on how he'd rebuild the economy, how he'd address the pandemic. It's why they're trying to build some anticipation over who becomes his running mate, because they're trying to build up a sense of this is why you should be for him, this is why you should be excited about his campaign. They've got time to do that. And look, ultimately, he may win because he's not the president. Yeah. That would be enough. A win is a win.
Yeah.
But certainly, the more affirmative you are, the more supportive you are of him, the better, because it suggests more people will actually turn out and vote.
It's remarkable that not President Trump could be a platform, but so far it is helping Joe Biden, it would appear. Let's talk about the vote-by-mail debate. The president has said he doesn't want to see expanded vote-by-mail. Many Democrats do. Are you seeing that divide in the polls?
You absolutely are, and that is really one of the incredible developments of this year. Because remember, a lot of states that are Republican-run or that have historically supported Republicans, especially in the West, do most of their elections by mail. But in these 3 states, we found majority of Democrats, most independents support expanding vote by mail, would like to be able to do it or at least have the option. But among Republicans, it's a very small percentage, and that's fine. If they want to show up and stand in line at potentially smaller polling or smaller number of polling locations in November because others have been shut down to control for the pandemic, you know, that's great for the president because he's got enthusiastic supporters. But if they don't vote by mail, And then there are issues on Election Day, long lines, issues. It could be a real dilemma for the president. Could still be, of course, for Democrats as well.
Yeah, and these battleground states are what matters in 2020. Ed, thank you for walking us through the numbers. We appreciate it. And, of course, to get real-time election polling and the state of the races in all 50 states, you can visit the CBS News Battleground Tracker. Poll at cbsnews.com/polls.